Hey, all you butt sniffers out there. Welcome to another round of Philosophy for Dogs. I'm your host, Mickey, here today with my fabulous co host, Rocky. And today we're doing a tug of war between two philosophers, Sextus Empiricus and Rene Descartes. But first, let's play a little bit. Is this your ball? Is this your ball? Well, she clearly thought that that was her ball, right? But what would Sextus Empiricus think? So Sextus Empiricus was a skeptic, which means that he examined ideas, appearances, truths by continuously searching, examining all of the possibilities rather than accepting his initial perceptions as fact. So that looked like a ball to us, sure. It's round, it's fuzzy, it bounces, and it's super fun to chase. But isn't it possible that our perceptions of it are limited? Couldn't there be more to it that we haven't yet found? Is that stressing you out? Don't let it, Rocky. Because the goal of skepticism is not to find the right answer and to know for sure. We don't need to reach a dogmatic conclusion. The skeptic process takes us to a place of suspended judgment where we don't have to get caught up in certainty. But what about that other guy, Descartes? Well, so Descartes' whole thing was this method of radical doubt. He wanted to get rid of all his false beliefs, and then from there figure out how to have true beliefs. And he did this by smashing it all to pieces. Okay, baby? He did this by smashing it all to pieces, calling everything into doubt temporarily, and then sifting through the rubble to see if there's anything left that just can't be doubted. All right, baby, hold on. So let's go back to that ball. It's over there somewhere. But I was holding it before, and it was fuzzy, it was round, it was bouncy. Like I said, it was so fun to chase, clearly. But isn't it possible that I'm dreaming right now? That Rocky's dreaming right now? That all of our perceptions of that ball were actually all in my dream? Isn't it possible that my perception might not be reality? If there's even the tiniest amount or possibility of uncertainty here, I can actually throw out all of my perceptions. Because if there's any room for doubt, I can't be sure that my beliefs aren't totally false. And now what about stuff that's not from the senses? If I gave her a treat right now and a treat after she sits because she's so good, come here, because she's so good, that's two treats. And that's not senses, that's math. But what if these ideas that we have about math and other like facts in our minds were put there by some deceiver? Some being with power over our minds that leads us to believe these falsehoods, right? According to Descartes, that's a possibility. So there's room for doubt there too. In fact, the only thing that we can be certain of, that Descartes could be certain of, is that we're going through this process right now. We're thinking about this. And if we're able to be deceived, if Descartes is able to be deceived, then we must be real. He must be real. He is a thinking thing, and he exists. And that's called the cogito argument. A thinking thing exists. And from there, a framework for true beliefs can be built. So that's kind of the basics of Sextus Empiricus and Rene Descartes. And you might be wondering why we're talking about them on the same day. They actually had quite a bit in common. So if Descartes' distrust of his sense perception sounded similar to the skeptics, that's because it totally is. They would both look at that tennis ball and have a whole lot of questions about it. So neither of them would think that feeling how fuzzy it is or watching it bounce would be good enough to really understand what it is. For both philosophers, the initial step is to question the reliability of beliefs, particularly beliefs that come from the senses. So they would look at that ball and they would wonder whether their perception of it was accurate. The way that it looks, the way that it feels, those wouldn't be good enough for them. And unlike some other philosophers that we might talk about on a later episode, they're both trying to avoid those false beliefs altogether. And they do it in slightly different ways, sure, but the goal there is the same. To them, it's not worth it to have any false beliefs. They don't want to firmly believe anything that might not be 100% real. But if they're so similar, then why are we talking about them separately? Why are they known for different things? There are actually some pretty big differences between the two. They both go through similar processes, yeah, but for very different reasons. So skeptics analyze appearances and they ask questions not to get any sort of solid certainty, but actually to do the opposite. So skeptics go through this process. They counter every idea with an equal and opposite one. They're doing this in search of quietude. And that's not the same kind of quietude that you like when you want to take a nap after a long walk. So this kind of quietude is actually a state of peaceful acceptance that you don't know everything, and you don't have to get caught up worrying about it. So the skeptics want to suspend judgment, and they want to avoid any sort of dogmatic conclusions about the way that things are. A skeptic doesn't want to stress about whether that was really a ball. They're happy to acknowledge that it appears as a ball to them and play with it like it's a ball, but they're not going to make any sort of definite claim that they know its true nature. But Descartes, with his radical doubt, he used skepticism as a tool to dismantle his existing system of beliefs. Not because he wants to accept that there are things that he doesn't know, but actually because he wants to know things without a shadow of a doubt. He wants to know what the real deal is with that tennis ball, and he'll accept nothing less. So he uses skepticism as a tool. He uses skepticism as a tool, but he wants to know for sure. If any belief can make it through his trial of radical doubt unscathed, it's got to be real. And using that idea that we talked about before, the cogito argument, as his foundation, he knows that it's possible to find certainty somewhere else. So he uses skeptical processes to get there, yeah, but that dude wants to be sure without a doubt. And which, that, as we've seen, that's not at all compatible with Sextus Empiricus and the skeptics. Also, Descartes is really into the idea that God exists. God must exist, and Descartes spends a lot of time justifying that. And you would never find Sextus Empiricus saying that God must exist with such certainty. It would be preposterous. He might think about it, but he'll equally consider the idea that God must not exist, and he'll never reach a dogmatic conclusion about it. So that's about it. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Philosophy for Dogs. I will see you next time to talk about two more philosophers. Have a beautiful day.